Well, hello everyone. Uh, Thank you for joining me for this live stream. I think the image might be a bit, um, maybe a bit too much light, but let's see. We'll see. We'll see. It's been it's been a while since I was live last time, but that's that happens because I've had some, let's say, challenges in my life in the past months. I've been really sick for a few months, uh, and my father-in-law passed away some weeks ago. So I haven't had the time or the resources, if you will, to do much about my to make much content, but I aim to make more content in coming months. Uh, more frequently, because there will come a time that I may or may I've I've been off from work on sick leave a lot because I've been sick and not capable of working because full disc well I'm I'll disclose I was diagnosed with cancer uh, a while ago, and I'm now waiting for surgery. And when I do have that surgery, I'll be off from work for quite a bit. And while I recover from the surgery, I will have time to have I will have time to make more stuff, YouTube stuff to, maybe lives, maybe probably live mostly because I won't probably won't be won't have the capacity to spend, be able to concentrate on editing, etc. For an extended period of time. So what I have here is for the let's bring that up. That this is oh this is from hmm, so much light. Just a moment. Uh, there we have it. Okay, so this is from um, Pyhaste Brewery in collaboration with Alive Brewing Co. It's Endless Bourbon Barrel Aged Black Barley Wine, 14.8 percent ABV. Mm. Oh, now the missus is home. Oh, and another news. On the other news, good news is that we got married in October, October 24th, I think it was. So now it's officially Mrs. and Mrs. But so, hmm, really, the bourbon barrel smells good. Anyway, back to the case of Markku Mallat. If you haven't watched my recorded episode part one on this case, I recommend you watch it now and maybe come back, or maybe watch this now and then go back to part one and watch it, because I will make a brief referral of the case. So, for those of you who do not know who Markku Mallat was, he was a local Green Alliance politician in the town I grew up, and he was um killed in the 1990s. I think 19 in Easter on Easter, uh, Good Friday, April 5th, 1996. He was a youth worker and local politician, and he was found on a pedestrian walkway by which which went along a busy or still goes along a busy expressway between Nokia and then Turku. And the case went cold. The statutes of limitation for it was investigated as a manslaughter, and the case went cold. They tried to bring it back to life. They made a few arrests just before the statute of limitations ended in 2016. It was 20. Oh, we have Jens in the chat. Excellent. Uh, so they tried to make a few arrests in 2016, but that led to nowhere. And there has been a continuous suspect that a name that I've heard from a number of sources, or read from a number of sources, is this character called Mehis, who was in around 20 years old at the time. Ooh, it's the doggo. Um, but he hung himself a few days after Markku died. It's been speculated that he did that out of guilt. But for the part two, so first of all, the police have been very quiet about the case since Markku died, even after the statute of limitation ended. Uh, Nothing much has been released. Information in general. They've said tactical reasons, etc. You know what they usually say. Yes, I just introduced my beer. It's from Pyhaste Brewery. It's an Estonian brewery in cooperation with Alive Brewing Co. called Embus Bourbon Barrel Aged. It's black barley wine, 14.8%. So, as my guest in the interview uh, said, the perpetrator is likely already dead. It's been so many years. It's been so many years. It'll be 30 years next April. And I have, but first I had my doubts. First I had my doubts about whether or not, I was so really sure that the perpetrator would still be out there. And but after talking to my guest, both off and on record, I I became convinced that whoever did this is already dead. Um, it's been it's as I said, 30 years next April. Uh, it's the perpetrator is already dead. For reasons mentioned on the interview, but I'll reference. It's most likely it's quite likely that the person who did this was involved in the drug trade, and those people who are involved in in such activities may or may not live very long. Um, so I have to agree, the perpetrator is likely dead, but I would love to know who it is. Um, I have to agree, but I'm also baffled by the fact that no one has ever come forward with a confession, any information leading to the trail of a suspect. I so anyway, I talked to a few people, uh, and I promised to keep my sources not um, anonymous as requested. And in this video, I will call the person behind the written interview Mr. A, and the interviewee on the video Mr. B, for sake of clarity. So this part one was more like what happened, and this is why, or why and who. Now, Mr. B mentioned a man who seemed to have known something significant at the time, but was too afraid to tell anything, even to a pastor. And Mr. B is a priest with the Finnish Lutheran Church, and in Finland, the priests of the Lutheran and the Eastern Orthodox churches have, by law, an absolute priest penitent privilege. This means that the priest's lips are sealed about everything heard in confession and pastoral care. The man in question was so afraid that he wouldn't even speak under this pastoral care protection. This means that whoever did. Hello. Looky. There's some glitter on the page. Ooh. She went partying. So.
Party animal was the theme.
Yes, party animal. Anyway, as I said, the Lutheran priests of the Finnish Lutheran and Eastern Orthodox churches have absolute priest penitent privilege. So this means that whoever did kill Markku back in the day must have coerced one or two more people into silence. So well, in fact, that these people are still afraid or are otherwise in position where they still cannot talk, even though the perpetrator is likely dead at this point. Perhaps they won't talk even now, even to a priest. Perhaps out of fear of retaliation so brutal from the killer's associates alive today, they still remain silent. And how is this possible? Your guess is as good as mine. Now, a few suspects have come up over the years. Now, since we don't know the exact time of death, I lean towards what my contact said, Markku, having been possibly revivable, as Mr. B in the video interview said, that he would have been revivable even half an hour before being discovered. So he was incapacitated, but not dead. This would, in turn, mean that he had been lying on the ground incapacitated for at least what I'd estimate 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours prior to discovery. And why this long? Based on everything I found, he was in good physical condition and fully clothed. So he had all his clothes on, shoes on. He was dressed appropriately, given the weather at the time, as far as I can tell. So we do not know with certainty the full extent of his injuries, but they managed to they were what the police said to the public that it was there was clear signs of external violence. Uh, but what we do know, he had all his clothes on. He had no external wounds, no blood, no weapons like knives or guns or anything of that sort. Uh, Anything of that sort, on the scene where he was found. Uh, Not even drag marks, no blood, nothing, no blood, and no blood anywhere, not a single drop of blood anywhere. So the bleeding must have been internal. Uh, Given these facts, it's likely that he lay there for quite some time, um, unconscious or incapacitated after being assaulted before succumbing to the elements and his injuries. Uh, the cold weather can take you quite quickly, honestly. But he was dressed weather appropriately, and he was in good physical condition. If you're in good physical condition and you're dressed weather appropriately, you you'd have to lie there for a good while before you die of hypothermia. So what is publicly known is very scarce because the police have been so tight-lipped. My main sources that I've had in this case are discussions on two true crime forums, Finnish ones, a book called Satanic Panic or Saatanallinen paniikki by Katri Ylinen, and two interviews, one written with Mr. A and one on video with Mr. B. My opinion, in my opinion, the written and video interviews were the most helpful. I got more information that I hoped for. Whether or not it is facts or speculation, it's up to you. It's up for you to decide. Uh, as for the suspects, I think there are two. Mace, uh, who was the druggie who went around beating people around town back in the day, and the third man who was there with Markku and his friend in the taxi, who got off the taxi with Markku at their final destination. Whether or not these are one and the same person, there is no way of knowing. But because Mehis was a local and he was well known, his face was known. So if the I suppose the taxi driver, if he was local, he was local most likely. So he would have recognized his face and would have told that to the police. So they, it's, I mean, it's possible that Mehis was the third man, but I don't think so. Anyway, Mr. A told me told me the guy we called Mehis on the video interview with with Mr. B. We was born in early 70s, which would have made would have made him in his early to mid 20s. Uh, in his statement, the taxi driver described the said that the third man was not yet of man's age, which in short is a euphemism for young male in late teens or early to mid 20s. I don't have a physical description of Mace at the time, but the hairstyle described by the taxi driver would match that of a young male in late teens to mid 20s at the time, and his age would be a rough match. It because it would some said it was he was in mid 20s, mid to late 20s, so rough match. All evidence points to Mehis being the person who committed suicide by hanging and was mentioned by Mr. B, interviewed on video, and this case was also mentioned on the online forums on a number of occasions. So, according to Mr. A, the one with the written interview, uh, Mihis also spent a lot of time around Buru Kiosk, where Marco ended up with the third man. Uh, where they Marco hopped up at 2:37 a.m. on that Good Friday morning. Uh, Mr. A is of the opinion that this Mehis theory is a lot more likely than drug gangs. If I understand, Mr. B seems to think the opposite. But I think that I don't think I don't because Mehis doesn't his description doesn't match to what people described Marco having. The people Marco talked to after after leaving the bar. Uh, I think it was at 1. So, and there are no. I'm yet to find any evidence or anyone anywhere say mentioning this Mace person having been seen around the town center that night, because there would have been other notable uh, people would have, because Mace was into drugs and into beating random people. I believe that if he had been in the town center that night, there would have been disturbances to which police would have been called. So it's really, I don't think he was, I don't, because he was not seen uh, downtown. He wasn't the third man. I don't think so. But whether or not he was, I mean, I think Mr. B postulated that he the killer likely was not the third man. The third man, it's possible that the third man had nothing to do, was someone just absolutely random, and had nothing to do with it. But whether or not it's how likely it is that it just so happens that this Mehis character shows up just there right there, right then. Your guess is as good as mine, really. I think both of my interviewees, Mr. Day and B, uh, agree that Satanism or Satan worship, um, so atheist or theist Satanism, had anything to do with it, with the case, even though some internet sleuths um, seem to think so. These internet sleuths, they just want to connect Satanism to anything and everything. And but Satanic Panic was a really huge thing in the town, um, in that small industrial town in the 1990s and early 2000s. It was a really big thing, and I uh, and Satanists, they had nothing to do with it. Satanism was blamed for all sorts of things, uh, and it was seen everywhere, and everything bad, from everything that tasted good, everything that tasted good, felt good, smelled good, was of the Satan, was of the devil. Um, Especially in smaller towns like Nokia, where evangelical Christianity was particularly strong at that time in history. And according to both of my sources, homophobia didn't seem to have anything to do with it either. And but 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 what I gather from my sources is that Mehis was very violent and very impulsive. So he would be the kind of, I would imagine he was the kind of person that would act on impulse, on maybe on based on some wild rumor, because the Christianity and the evangelical Christianity and the satanic panic was everywhere. And I truly hope I it was really horrible. I was a child back I was a child, but I still remember it was horrible. It was the satanic panic and evangelical, those horrendous people were everywhere. But Mahis would be the kind of, I think, what based on what I've heard, Mahis is the kind of person who might take up a wild rumor he heard of someone and think it's somehow true, and maybe if I mean I and gone then, he may have heard that maybe Markku is gay, who knows, and then gone with that, and his home maybe so one scenario that I can think of, that Mays has had heard a rumor that Markku is gay, and by some chance ended up right there, right then, saw Markku tumbling back home, uh, drunk, apparently drunk, and then smacked him real bad, and couple of days later, he hears Markku's dead and kills himself out of guilt. But that does not explain. That doesn't. This theory, just that's one theory. Okay, But then there's there's um, the side to the story where people are still too afraid to talk, even years after the fact. So someone must have coerced these people who know something about this, and then people who know something about it, and then they maybe his friends have coerced them into it, into not talking. I don't know. This is like the case of. I mean, this somehow reminds me of the case of Biarritz Conqueror in a way, where people there seem to be people who know something, but then again, uh, haven't really gone, haven't spoken out because out of fear, out of I, I don't know. I mean, this is really, really, really weird. This is a really super mysterious case. I mean, I this is one of those cold cases that uh, there's doesn't seem to be any logical explanation until someone uh, one of these cases that don't seem to make any sense. Uh, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, I can tell you that at in the 90s and still today in 2025, Nokia is a really small town. It's uh, a population of maybe 30,000, I think. Let's see. Just over 36,000. 36,500. Yeah, but it's still a small town. Even in Finnish scale, it's a small town. It's relative. It's not even a mid-sized town. So this is and in small conservative industrial town, everyone knows everyone else's business. Honestly, um, and someone knows someone who knows someone. You get what I mean? Is is really so because the town is like that. It's really strange that it's as if no one knows anything. As no one knows anything, absolutely, that no one knows nothing. Um, there aren't, there are only a few cases like this where there are no real clues. This is like the case of Pia Ristikankara. There are just no clues. Like Pia walked out of her door, walked out of the door of her home, and poof, poof. No one, nothing after that. No one. I mean, just like poof in the wind. And this is one of those cases where things happen, and no one knows why and who by, and no one knows anything. No one, I don't know anything. Everyone is like, didn't see anything, didn't hear anything, don't know anything. But I can tell you that the town people are like, if you know, okay, I won't say anything. I'm not gonna trash the people too much, but this is one of those. Is this case really bothers me because I I have a distinct memory of Markku coming to our place, and he shortly before he passed, and he they had this meeting there, this Green Alliance meeting, um, and they I was playing a video game on the computer. I don't remember. It was some sort of a first person shooting game. They had like Quake or Doom or something like that. Uh, and then Marco showed interest. He came asking, what are you playing? What kind of game is this? And how do how do you play this game? And etc. etc. And then a few days later, my dad comes up and says, "Remember that Marco guy? He's gone. He's dead." Uh, so it really, this is a case that really, really, really stuck with me, and it's been almost 30 years, and it still bothers me. It's really, it really bothers me because every single person you ask, every single person who knew him liked him. Every single person had only good things to say about him. I asked several people of their memories of him, and no one had. I talked to maybe a dozen people, and all of them said only good things. Only good things about him. And then everyone liked him, everyone loved him, and then one Good Friday morning, he's gone. So a man loved by every pretty much everyone, just not gone, just like that. And the killer was never found. It's something that really bothers me. That no one has ever come forward. It really sucks. So this was the case of Markku Mallat in parts one and two. Had a good party, but yeah, had, had a good party.
Yeah.
Uh huh.
Go party.
Good work party. Hmm. Really good barley wine. Mm. Really nice. I think there's at least one watching. Do you have any thoughts? I think it's possibly Jens watching. Uh, and those watching as a recording, please leave your thoughts in the description. Leave me a like and follow. I will try to make more frequent postings, but as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, there have been certain challenges in the past few months. As I mentioned, I've been really sick, I've been really sick and diagnosed with a brain tumor. So I I will. The easy explanation seems a bit too easy, in my humble opinion. Something to stop the questions. Yeah. Do you mean the Mehi's theory that he just ended up? He was there just then, just there, and and there we go. But I think it was the most likely suspect is Mehis, but it still doesn't work. It's still too easy. If I wanted an easy explanation, it's Mehis, but it's too easy. It's too easy. That's lazy work. That's lazy. Just too lazy. It sounds like something made up to keep people digging deeper. I don't. This May's theory is not something that the police gave. This does not come from the police. The police has not revealed any um, names or any. They've had the only things that they've had. The only people they've had was a man in their 50s in who they two men in their 50s who they arrested in uh I think in 2016, in early 2016, just a few weeks or days before this the statute of limitation came to an end. So the sources that I talked to, they both the for example Mr. A, who mentioned this Mace character, um he too says it's you know it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I mean, it's because it's so unlikely. I mean, if you they wanted to do some lousy police work and say it was him, case closed, don't ask any more questions. um yeah, but this was just a theory that I heard, came up came up with from what I heard from these people. So it could have been him, but most likely it wasn't him. Most likely it wasn't him. So I'd pers- if someone came forward and said it's him, I would still be said like I would still be like, really, really, are you really sure about this? Because it's too easy. It's lazy. It's intellectually lazy. It's still an interesting case, really. It sucks, really, if you really think about it. That such a man loved by many, or well, loved by most, if not all, who knew him, ends up dead, and no one gets punished for it. So it's it's really horrible. It's really really horrible. But hey, this was Markku Mallat Part 2, and if you haven't watched Part 1, I think I have linked it in the script. Actually, it seems that I haven't. Okay. I think I'll just Okay, now it's up. If you refresh the page, you'll see the link in the description now. This was it. Parts one and two, done and dusted. Boom, boom, boom. I hope that someone in coming years, maybe a deathbed confession. Who knows? Fingers crossed. I hope there's someone comes forward with some information. No arrests can be made because the statute of limitation is gone. Boof. In 20 years, they actually um, uh, a bill called Lex Mallat came into effect when they overhauled the criminal code, and it came into effect as of January 1st, 2025. Um, Before that, the statute of limitation for manslaughter, which was the case in Markku's case, they investigated it as a manslaughter. The statute of limitation was 20 years. The only um, the only crime with no statutes of limitation prior to 2025 was murder. But now, after after as of January 2025, the manslaughter has no statutes of limitations. So, but this doesn't affect anything retroactively. So it doesn't. Um, unfortunately, doesn't it? Unfortunately, there's no grandfather clause, so it doesn't affect Markku's case. Unfortunately, but I will see you next time. Bye bye.